This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. My guest today is Nick Hutchings, who is a financial planner, director at Rock Wealth Reading. He's also the host of his own podcast, The Retirement Lounge, Solar accredited financial planner, and very, oh God, what have I done? And just off the press, he's recently been on the Martin Lewis's show. So you go from Martin Lewis show, which is kind of the preparation for this, to the Advisor 3.0 podcast. Welcome to the show, Nick.
It's always onwards and upwards in my career, Abraham, and from straight out of the Martin Lewis show and upwards onto the Advisor 3.0.
Yeah, he goes downhill from here, though, doesn't it?
Well, I hope not, but you never know.
That's good.
I suppose it can only go downhill, possibly.
Thank you for coming on the show, Nick.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, the journey that has brought you to financial planning and, you know, as now director, owner, Rock Wealth Reading. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So I started in the Wild West days in 1997 at a company older planners would be aware of, called GAN, which was a bit like a Dunbar, I suppose, and it was get out and see as many people as you can and sell as much as you can. And the answer's my product kit. And when I what's the question? And so it was on a self-employed basis. So that was kind of my introduction. And I joined in the August of 97. And welcome to financial services. They sold out in December 97. So yeah, it was a short, sharp shock at the beginning. But then, you know, I did my FPCs at the time, and I stayed with the same bunch of guys for a while, and then I did a bit of work for a bank and a building society, and then I spent a lot of my career at Standard Life as a BDM.
Right.
And during that time at Standard Life, it was through the evolution of the WRAP platform and an RDR and pension freedoms, which were, you know, significant changes in the landscape of financial planning, really. And then it got to a point where, you know, I knew a lot of IFAs. I thought to myself, you know, there's an opportunity here from my knowledge and experience where I think I could do a very good job.
A better job than them.
As good a job as some of them, and you know, and help some clients. I wanted to be more client focused rather than work. My clients at Standard Life were IFAs rather than clients, and I actually lost my best friend at 45. So he's my school friend, and he was my best man at my wedding, and that was the turning point for me, really. I discovered Paul Armson.
Right.
So between my friend dying, Paul Armson, and it really felt like, actually, you know, what was I then? I was kind of early 40s. I need to change direction and do something that's more meaningful for me, I think was really my motivation. And so I went back into the IFA world.
So you became a financial planner. I'm assuming that you were, I mean, we've had this conversation before. You were working for a firm. Were you employed, self-employed? And at what point did you decide, actually, I'm going to strike out on my own and set up, my own business? Yeah.
So, I was reasonably well networked because I'd worked with a lot of IFAs. And I joined a firm, and I was a couple of good years there, and then they got acquired by Sanlam, and then it was, we're going to go down the restricted route. And I was thinking, well, that's not really what I wanted to do. And then I had another couple of forays with firms, really trying to find out what it was that I wanted and was interested in. I found myself an accountancy firm in Oxford, and it was a really good firm. It was more aligned to my beliefs and what allowed me to be a lot more authentic in what I was doing. And then I was there a couple of years and they got acquired. So, I was a bit sick of acquisitions. It doesn't sit well with clients when you move about a bit, but it was really, trying to find my place really. And so when the accountancy, when the financial planning arm of the accountancy firm got acquired, I had the opportunity to join the acquiring firm. I knew very quickly that I wasn't going to be a very good cultural fit with that firm. So I started exploring other employed roles or set up on my own. I didn't really want to set up on my own because, I love the client work, but I never had the ambition to be a business owner. So setting up on my own, directly authorised takes a while to get through authorisation. I can go and join a network, but then I'm always compromising on, what investment solutions I can use or what platforms or the way I charge. But I was aware of Rock Wealth. I had a conversation with Tim at Rock Wealth, and I knew immediately that actually this is where I want to be. This is what I've been looking for, and if I was going to set up my own firm, then it would have effectively looked like Rock Wealth, just with a different name, because it's evidence-based investing and it's fixed fees and it's about financial planning, and that was what I was looking for.
So how long ago was that you set up?
So that was 2.5 years ago now.
Incredible.
So yeah, it's very daunting setting up your own business, as anyone would. You'll know better than a lot of people as well. But actually, I think a good measure of whether it was the right decision, I've got zero regrets, and I love it at Rock Wealth. So.
And have you been self-employed previously? Have you had self-employed roles? So it's not completely new. Obviously, Rock Wealth gives you, call it the umbrella, the framework, but still. Is there anything you wish you had known about the process of getting a business off the ground? What took longer than you expected?
My authorization took longer than I expected. So it was about 3 months to the day. But of course, during that period of time, I had built up a client bank, and they were. What I discovered was when the accountancy firm was, or the financial planning arm of the accountancy firm was sold, I took some legal advice, and it helps that my wife is in HR and she's a 2P specialist.
Okay.
So I actually discovered quite quickly, very, very quickly, that actually and it's semantics, but if I object to a 2P transfer, then my contract becomes null and void with my previous employer, and I've never had a contract with the new employer. So I've got, I'm not breaking any contract. So I had a number of clients that, were going to come with me, and that I'd worked with for a period of time as well. And it's about relationships. So, the clients don't really like to change advisor if you've got a good relationship with them. So, the opportunity was there to set up on my own as well. But I mean, ultimately, it was the timescale, I think, was the biggest thing, because there's always an element of trepidation as far as I'm aware, I've got no reason why I wouldn't be authorised, but why is it taking so long? So, and then I was kind of nurturing the clients and massaging them during the process as well, because, some of them understandably got a bit anxious, saying, Nick, I thought it might take 4 or 8 weeks, but actually 3 months in, we're still waiting. So it was a big relief when it came through. So that was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating, this move to to set up on your own. So talk to me about so you're 2.5 years in. You have your power planner. You're a solo advisor. Tell me where the business is today and what keeps you awake at night.
So business, the good thing about when I left, when I set up on my own, it allows you to cherry pick.
Right.
Because when you're employed, you get employed to do a job and you have to work with, you can't get on with everyone, of course. And there were some clients there that, would have perhaps, how can I put this? You all understand what I mean. I wouldn't necessarily choose to work with. So there was an element of that. So it was really nice because when I set up on my own, I've got a certain amount of capacity, and if it's got to be a mutual thing, of course. But if you've got that mutual relationship with someone, and I want to work with them, and they want to work with me, then that's great. There were some that I anticipated would come over and didn't. And, that was, I remember the very first call I made to the client. I thought, well, I'm going to call these. They're a banker. They'll come over with me. And they didn't. And that seems to be a consistent theme with people that I've spoken to as well. And then there was others that, I wasn't necessarily expecting, but did come over, which was really nice as well, where I might have only worked for them for a few months prior to
Did they say
the acquisition.
Did they say why they didn't come over? Do you know any idea?
Not the particular clients that I've got in mind. No, I would imagine it was because I'd had a few moves within a short space of time, trying to find the right home for me, really. Right. And I'm guessing, but that might have unsettled them. But I'm not sure, because as far as I was concerned, we had a really good working relationship, and I was expecting them to come over, but they didn't. But
curveballs, eh? So talk to me about. So one of the things that attracted you to Rock Wealth is, of course, evidence-based, investing philosophy. The fact that great firm, flat fees. When we had a conversation, you were very big on flat fees as the way to charge client. What does that look like, and why do you find it so compelling?
So I'll caveat this at the beginning because, they're divisive fees within the advisor world. And I'm not saying it's the perfect way, because I don't believe there is the perfect way. But for me, it's the right way. And other people have their own opinions and do things that suits them and their clients. But for me, if I was looking for financial advice as a consumer, then I think I would want to pay fixed fees. And part of the reason for that is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to remove all the conflicts. So I don't need to sell products to get... So my product is my service. So I don't need to sell manufactured provider products to get paid. I might use them if they're required, but I'm not dependent on that. I'm not dependent on having to consolidate different pensions into a certain platform or into a certain investment process. It starts off with why wouldn't you? Because if it's the most efficient method for most people, then why wouldn't you? But some people are wedded to the platform that they're on, and that's absolutely fine. As long as I have that conversation, and some people pay more because it's a bit like changing your bank for some people. I can't be bothered to change my bank every half year to get a £300 or £400 bonus for changing the bank. So, I think that was the crux of it. That's how I would want to be looked after, and I would want to pay. It reduces the surprises, and also it's transparent, and it takes away that conflict, which is the biggest thing for me. And it also means that I'm not compelled to bring your assets under management with myself because of the focus is on the planning. So for some clients, I charge for the planning, exclusively for the planning, although not that many, it's only one or two. But that's the bit of the job I think is the most meaningful for people. And the fact that we might use products in the background, well, that's fine, and I charge an extra fee if there is, that work required. But they're only paying for what they're doing, and it's, if someone's got £100,000 or £1 million, and I charge 1%, it doesn't charge. I get paid £1,000 for someone with £100,000 or £10,000 with someone for £1 million. It's unlikely to be 10 times more work for someone with £1 million. And therefore, for me, it stops that cross-subsidisation from wealthy clients to less wealthy clients. But also then it does create a barrier for entry for some people, because, I do have my own minimum fees. The good thing about Rock Wealth is they give you your own autonomy to work, but, we're all culturally very closely aligned. So I'd like to think that actually there's a big element of trust because, we're all there to do the right thing. And I think most of a high percentage of the people working in the franchised offices of Rock Wealth are there because their firm has been acquired and they're uncomfortable with the acquirer, and therefore, where can I be authentic and deliver a service that I truly believe in?
Yeah, so no, I should charge Tim Orox for this, this advert on the podcast, shouldn't I? He would say, I used to know Tim when we were both sort of small little business. Now he's a big gun. He doesn't talk to me anymore. He can't take. No, I'm joking. No, I mean that about Rock Wealth as a fast growing franchise for financial planners, especially those who are leaving firms that have been bought. Is
if you want to truly, the focus. It always starts with a plan. Mm-hmm. Which is, in my world, the way it should be, because, how can you advise people to do something if you don't actually know where they're starting from and where they're trying to get to? And so, it is fun. Financial planning is fundamental, and then, the keeping the costs low and making it the most efficient journey product-wise for those clients to get them where they want to get to.
Yeah. So where do you set the minimum? And do you then charge as far as the initial fee? That's pretty. You can talk to me about how you come to the framework of the initial fee, but more importantly, I want to know about the ongoing fees. Do you charge everybody the same? Is there level of service? How do you? The bit I'm trying to get to is how do you account for the fact that although not always the case, but it is often the case that clients who do have more wealth, have more complexity, they might have more tax planning opportunities, mm-hmm. and there is often more value add, from a financial planning point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So I stole this acronym from Alan Smith.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He uses VECTR.
Another one who should pay me for his name being mentioned on
probably.
the podcast.
So he uses, or he did, I assume he still does, but VECTR, which is value, experience, complexity, time, overheads, and risk. And so I have a spreadsheet to help me for a start for 10, but I do it based on a feeling, because some clients might be in exactly the same position and exactly the same, situation, but they'll be different clients, and you can get a feel for the ones that are going to be more demanding of my time and some that are going to be less demanding of my time. So I'll factor that in as well. So it can be a feeling of it, but ultimately, I work on a spreadsheet, and the ones with more complex situations, then I'll charge them a higher fee because they're going to, one, I've got my bigger overheads, I've got bigger risk, it'll take more time, it's more complex, it requires more experience. So it's all those, and they get better value. So it's all, that is what VECTR is, and that's why I think it's a good acronym to use for gauging the right level of fees for clients. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some clients where I get it wrong. and we have to have conversations. But there's some clients that I've reduced fees on the flip side of that as well, because actually, it's about providing value, and value is a feeling. And just like any relationship, where there's feelings involved, then it's, if I'm feeling something, then the other side of that relationship is probably feeling something similar. So, I try and be as fair as I can all the time. And so for some clients, I've reduced fees, and for some clients, I've put up fees.
So I assume you build some sort of inflation index linking into the fees. What I find is actually implementing that in real world. How have you found that process? Do you have to go back to the client every year, confirm the fees, confirm their consent to the fees, and then, implementing the fees in platform can be, a bollock. Some platform require you to essentially recreate or regenerate illustrations, this kind of complexity. How have you found the implementation in the real world?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes I think I made was not doing it from the off, was building in inflation. So
into the contract.
Yeah. So where I was at the accountancy firm, we did a lot of hourly rate work, and we did actually put the fees up during the period I was there. But that was the first time we'd put them up in 10 years, with the hourly rate fees, and with the benefit of hindsight, if I was redoing it, I would have built in inflation proofing into it, although I'm now beginning to do that. I haven't actually gone back to the clients that came on board with me first of all and have come on since to do that, but that's a process. I was planning on doing it this year, but do you know what, Abraham? I was just so busy. Which is good. It was busy, but I didn't have the headspace to give it some thought. What I did was I saved lots of emails from providers who were putting their fees up, and I thought, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the best of all of these to communicate to my clients that I need to do it. But I didn't. My plan was to do it from the 1st of April.
Yeah.
Which meant then I felt I had to do it in January.
Right. Yeah.
And I was so busy in January, I just didn't have the headspace to do it. And then by the time it got to February, I thought it's a bit late now to do it for April. Tax year end, I've been, the good news is I've been too busy to do it.
Yeah. And I think this is Nick, I'm so grateful for your honesty about this, because I love the idea, the framework of a flat fee. Some of my best financial planning friends, they adopt it as a framework. What I have seen, and we've seen this with firms that we work with, is the the implementation has all this friction that isn't necessarily your fault or but I mean, you're 2.5 years in, great that you're now thinking about doing that, but it just compounds if it's not addressed. Yeah.
And there was a couple of advisors that I know that did a similar thing at a similar time and went down the ad valorem fee charging structure. And we joke because they say, they'll say, "Oh, how have your fees been? What's your turnover been like?" And but then I can turn around to them and say, my clients know exactly what they're paying.
Yeah.
It helps me feel authentic. Now, each to their own, but that's what I need really is to quite often, like a lot of people, I get things like imposter syndrome sometimes, and I certainly had that a bit at the beginning, particularly setting up on my own, and that's probably why I probably undercharge for some people. But it it is what it is, and I'll be building in inflation. I'm building in inflation proofing now for new clients, but certainly I'm putting that as part of the terms of engagement, and I'll build it in from April next year, I'd imagine, because then they've got a track record, and that was the other thing. I don't want to do it after the first year because hang on, you've only been up and running a year.
Yeah.
After 2 years, I felt, well, I've got a bit of a track record.
Yeah.
After 3 years, I think, it's difficult for clients not to say, yeah, fair enough, you need to do a fee increase, with the way everything else is gone. So
understood. So let's talk about your media empire, shall we? So let's talk about the podcast, the Retirement Lounge.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about your recent appearance on Martin Louis on the less important.
Yeah.
Let's start with the podcast. What's it about? Why? And the question everyone's keep asking: do you get any clients from it?
Okay, so we're a year in now. I think we launched it in April 25. So we're just over a year in. We're on 30 episodes. I do an episode every other week.
Congrats.
I've been a podcast addict for many, many years anyway. So I've got a dog, and so I walk a couple of hours a day. I have an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, and during that walk, I'll generally listen to podcasts. My podcasts are normally around, educating myself and listening to people I want to hear, such as yourself on your podcast on my dog walks. So, I've been doing this a long time now, and I've accidentally niched into retirement. So I really only deal now with retirees. So the retired people that I look after have children. So sometimes I get involved with the children, but I do a lot of that on a pro bono basis. I'll say, I'll give them an hour or so of my time, and we'll just make sure they're in the right pension plan, right pension fund, because, you get a lot of 20, 30-year-olds in default funds, don't you, which is it's unlikely to be the optimal fund solution for them. When they're in their 20s and 30s for their pension fund. And so I've kind of accidentally niched into it. And I think I've accidentally niched into retirement planning because, one, I think that's where the most wealth is. And also, to coincide with that, that's where the biggest need is for the psychological transition from working into retirement. And I think that is a fundamental part of retirement planning. It is about the money, but it's not just about the money. It's also about what you're going to do with yourself and etc. And I think that was again a bit of a cliche, but I think that's come from watching my dad go through retirement. So my dad retired in 2012 and passed away in 2019. And with the benefit of hindsight, I think retirement killed him because he got depressed. He started eating worse. He liked a whiskey, so he started drinking more whiskey, and he just went. He had a couple of good honeymoon years, and then after that, he was bored and lost his identity and didn't know what to do with himself. I think if we go a long way upstream, that's what killed him. And that therefore provides me with the motivation to help more people. And if I can get my message out and share my knowledge and wisdom, and my knowledge and wisdom is just everyone else, is the collective knowledge and wisdom of everyone else that I've gained through conversations over the years and through listening to podcasts and reading books, then if I can help more people transition in that phase of life, which I think is most people don't prepare properly for it. They might prepare financially, but they don't prepare psychologically for the transition. And if I can help more people do that successfully, then what motivates me is I need to earn a living, of course, but what really, really motivates me, Abraham, is when people say, Nick, that's amazing that you've made such a difference. And you can see it in your meetings as well. That's why I get out of bed.
So do you get, presumably you get existing clients listening to it,
Yep.
but also have you, in terms of the lead generation aspect of it, I know that's not the goal, but have people found you through the podcast? And how has that been different when they find you through the podcast versus if they just been, say, introduced to you without listening to the podcast?
Yeah, so I'm a year in. I've only had 2 people come to me directly. So I do track where my new inquiries come from.
Yeah.
I don't. Is podcasting marketing? Some would argue it is, and it probably is to an extent. But it's a really difficult one to measure, I think. And it's difficult to measure because, so would I have got the Martin Lewis gig if I hadn't have done the podcast?
Right.
So how do I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that they were quite interested in the fact that I did a podcast. So that might have been why I was asked to come on the show. But I can't measure. How do you measure that? It's, I think what I've discovered from listening to podcasts myself is that it's almost like you get to know the presenter without them knowing you, and you can build. It just adds to the trust, and it adds to it allows you to demonstrate you can be an authority in your chosen subject.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it does. But it's difficult to measure. And, so some inquiries might come to me because I'm at Rock Wealth or because they've been referred to me from clients. But then, when they've been searching for me before they get in touch, they also realise I do a podcast. And that just increases their confidence to come to me as well. Then
it's that compounding of... multiple touch points. I mean, we've done this analysis in our business where we, you say, well, how many touch points does somebody have, a prospect, before they ultimately spoke to you, they ultimately converted?
Yes.
And it may well be, depending, maybe 6, 10, 20 touch points sometimes. The thing that keeps, that amazes me, my friend Pete Matthew, who's the OG of podcasting.
I've been on my podcast.
Right, he's been on your podcast.
Yeah,
he's good. He's been doing this, for 15 odd years before podcast became a thing.
Yeah.
And he tells me, I was at his firm, earlier this year, and he tells me now meaningful money in the podcast now account for something like 90% of the lead that they get. Yeah. They now just get, clients, and they can't even take, maybe 80% of those. So it's such a powerful tool. You've been doing it a year.
Yes.
And you've already been on Martin Lewis's show, okay. So, no, it's, I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of that compounding effect. Yeah. Most people will give up on podcasting or frankly, any kind of, content creation, 3 months in. Yeah,
I mean, I do struggle for the time sometimes, but actually I really enjoy it. And the hardest part I think is probably finding a structure if I'm doing solos. Yeah. If I'm interviewing some people, then it's amazing because there's not really a lot of prep.
They do the work.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So, but when I do solos, then that there is quite a lot of work involved in that because I need to think about what I'm going to talk about. I need to think about the structure. And so for a half-hour episode, it might be 3 or 4 hours prep, and that is, it's not necessarily acknowledged by the listeners how much work goes into the prepping for those episodes.
So Martin Lewis show, tell me a little bit about that. How did you find, how did the gig come? Must be, how did you get the gig, and what was the preparation that went into it? What did it feel like to be in an ITV studio?
It was really interesting, actually. I was a bit apprehensive about volunteering to do it, but I had a few interviews with the researchers. So I had one call and two Zoom calls with the researchers, asking me about my experience and throwing some questions at me, and how would you answer this? And it was always, your answers need to be short. Sharp, and concise, and so it's really difficult. So it all happened very quickly. Within 2 weeks, they'd reached out, and we arranged the calls. We had the interviews, and then they told me kind of 5 days before I was going to go on, right, we'd like you to come on the show. So I don't know how many other people they were talking to and asking,
right?
But after I'd been through the round of interviews, then they said, yeah, fantastic, we'd love you to come on the show. And then it was, of course, I was thinking, what have I got myself in for? But ultimately, it was really good fun. So we rocked up on a Tuesday night. It was a live show, 7:00 on a Tuesday evening, and you kind of get there. Get there about 4:30. They give you a dressing room. I felt like a proper pro.
You gotta,
so they give you a dressing room. Yeah, makeup just before you go on set, but you have a rehearsal. You kind of get gist of what the format of the show is going to look like and how it's going to run. And then you go back, you have a quick bite to eat, get changed, and then you're back on set. You get your makeup done because, you're as follically challenged as I am, Abraham. So I can say
Speak for yourself. Don't come and insult me on my podcast.
My head was a bit too shiny a few times, so you had the lovely makeup girls dumbing down the shininess of my head. Yeah. But it was so quick. It's an hour-long show, but because it's on ITV, you get 43 minutes of broadcasting. And it was just great to see all the energy and the speed and the chaos. Well, it felt like chaos to me of what goes on behind the scenes, really, to get the show out. And I take my hat off to them. They're experts in making you feel welcome and looking after you and getting and delivering the show. It's all credit to Martin and his team for doing such a good job, I think. And his motivation is really to help more people, isn't it? And that obviously aligns strongly with what I feel as well. So, I was happy to go on.
I know, it's incredible. I'm glad he's now speaking more about investing, financial planning, pensions, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff. Would you do it again? Would you recommend that others do?
Yeah, definitely. So my LinkedIn went mad after the show and during the show as well.
You are now truly famous, a national figure.
For 5 minutes until someone else goes on next week's show, I imagine. I've had some inquiries off it already as well, so that's good. But it was just really interesting to see how it all works. Really, it's fascinating to see, and I'll now leverage it. So I've recorded a podcast about my experience on the day, and what I found was, so I have watched the Martin Lewis show, but I don't watch it religiously, and that's probably because of what I do. I don't actually learn very much from watching him. So I'm on top of the royal we. We're on top of our utilities because my wife does it. But there's not really a lot that I can gain from his show because of what I do. But I did watch a few of the shows in preparation for the episode, and I also looked at Facebook because that was I'm sure they do stuff on X and things like that as well, but I don't really go on that. Not that I go on Facebook either, but I was looking at Facebook because they were asking people to send in their questions. So I was looking at the questions to give myself a flavour of the types of questions that we were going to get fired at us during the show. But then because I'd been looking, the algorithm brought up the Martin Lewis show after the show as well, and so then I was reading all the comments on what people thought of the show.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because one of the things that we talked about was annuities, which
Yes.
can be a bit Marmite in the financial planning world. For me, as part of a financial plan, and you don't buy an annuity because you think it's the most financially optimal product to either give you the income you want or leave a legacy for the estate. That's not why you buy an annuity. You buy an annuity because you like the psychological impact of having a regular income, and that helps you sleep well at night. But there was lots of people on there talking about, I think there was one that resonated with me, that big money man who was talking about annuities. He didn't talk about this, that, and the other about annuities, and you can get a better return in the S&P 500. You can get a better return, and you leave a legacy. Yeah, but you've missed the point, haven't you? Because that's not why you buy an annuity. And I think the biggest challenge, and it brings a kind of wry smile when you read all these comments, is because your answer has to be 15 seconds long.
Exactly.
And you can't explain annuities in 15 seconds. And there's, I spoke to Martin before the show started and we were talking about the questions. And I said, the thing is, Martin, from our perspective as financial planners, the first word from any question you get from a viewer is always going to be depends.
Depends, yeah.
It always depends because you haven't got enough information there to know, what you need to give them the answer to the question. So there's always going to be a depends, and the fact that you get kind of 10 or 15 seconds to provide your answer, you've just got to say as much as you can in that period of time, but acknowledge, be sure to generalize.
But of course, if they want deeper, clearer insights, they can listen to the Retirement Lounge or, get in touch for a personal consultation.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's why I did the follow-up episode. And I'm probably going to do my next couple of episodes about the Martin Lewis show, just answering providing more context into what we discussed on the show. So I think that will be really good for people.
Yeah. Good stuff. And again, talking about the compounding effect of this, podcast media appearance. You've been on Martin Lewis show. You got your podcast. Now you've just been quoted in the Telegraph. Is that a thing that's happened before or after the show?
So I've done some work with the Telegraph, provided comment for the Telegraph around care fees planning, because that's something I get involved in as a Solar advisor. And then off the back of that as well, another journalist has been in touch, a recommendation from a Telegraph journalist to ask me if I'd talk with her further about an article she's preparing for care fees as well.
Going up in the world.
Well, it's this compounding thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's. I'm at the point now where I'm approaching the capacity for what I can do for clients, and I'm having some conversations with other potential trainee advisors, because actually the bit of the job I really, really enjoy is making a big difference to lots of people and talking. So. I hate all the administration side of running a business, of providing the financial advice. All the admin side, I absolutely hate. But it's the talking to people is the bit, being curious about people is the bit that I really love.
The fun bit. So let's talk a little bit about care fee planning, deferred needs annuities, that sort of thing. Why is the? Tell me about this specialism. What brought you into it, and why are you so keen on deferred needs annuity? What scenarios do you see this being relevant?
Used,
or abused? Yeah.
So it sounds cliched, but I got into the Solar side of things because because my gran needed care. So a good number of years ago, and my mum turned to me because I'm in the financial services world. And Nick, what can we do? How do we do this? How do we pay for care? And I didn't really have much of a clue. So I actually referred my mum to a Solar advisor at the time. But then that was when I was at Standard Life. And then when I left Standard Life, one of the things that I wanted to work on was the retirement, working with retirees. And a lot of the people I work with have elderly parents. And having been through that as well with my own family, what I find is a lot of I'm often dealing with the children, so perhaps in their 50s and 60s. They're often we hope they've got power of attorney for parents, and then parents need to go into care. And it's a massive eye-opener for people because, if you've never dealt or had experience of care fees planning or the care world, then people can be bowled over by the cost. I'm in the southeast, and the cost of care, even in the number of years that I've been working on it, has, I used to say, well, the average care fees is around about 1,500. Now, within the last few years, the average care fees are around about £2,000 a week. So £2,000 a week, that's £100,000 a year. That's a lot of money, and quite often, that can decimate an estate very quickly. And you've got this sandwich generation. So you've got the clients that I'm looking after with their retirement plans. All of a sudden, their parents are ill. They might still be looking after children, probably older children, but how old are children until they're fully independent? Quite often, well into their 20s and sometimes 30s before they become, financially independent as well. So I mean, that was broadly why I got into it. Care fees, so annuities, care fees, annuities, surprisingly few people know about them as well. So I do some work with some care homes in my local area, and I have to educate the people in the care homes about care fees, annuities, because some of them have not even heard of them. So if we why do, it comes back to the point that I was just talking about with annuities. Why do people buy annuities? You can't buy, at the time you buy the annuity, you're not buying it because you think it is the most financially optimal solution, because you can't know that. And the reason you can't know it is because you don't know how long you're going to live. So why do people buy an annuity? Well, you buy an annuity, we're talking about care fees annuities. So you buy a care fees annuity because you want some sort of certainty over the future cost of care. Because the families that I've worked with, one of their biggest fear, the most common fear I hear is, how much do we need? How do we know, whether we need 200,000, 300, 400, $1 million? How do we know where's the backstop, and how do we know how much we need? You can't ever be 100% accurate with a care fees annuity, but you can provide some sort of certainty over the future cost of care. So you get broadly two types of care fees annuity. You get an immediate care fees annuity, and you get a deferred care fees annuity. And if very few people know about immediate care fees immediate needs annuities, even fewer know or talk about deferred care fees annuities. So they are what they say on the tin. Immediate care fees annuities, well, they start paying out immediately, and they'll pay for the rest of the life of the insured. So it provides that certainty. The reason you can't be 100% sure is because you can build in inflation proofing, but you never know how much the care fees are going to increase by. So because that's an unknown, it's a known unknown, but you can never be 100% sure. So you get immediate care fees annuities, you pay your premium, and then it pays out straight away, and it gets paid to the care provider. And that's normally because that's the most tax efficient way. But there's also this thing called deferred care fees annuities. And the deferred care fees, so when people are buying an immediate needs annuity, their biggest fear is, well, you pay this whopping great premium up front, and then what happens if parent dies after 6 months or 12 months or a short period of time? You've paid a whopping great premium and you've not had your money's worth. You might have had the peace of mind's worth because that's why you buy it, but actually you can reflect on it then and say, with benefit of hindsight, I'm really gutted we did that. So to simplify the numbers and the conversation, if we say the average lifespan of someone in care is 4 years and their care fees cost £100,000 a year, and between their attendance allowance and their state pension and their other pensions, they might get £40,000 worth of income. So then they've got a £60,000 shortfall. So you can buy an immediate needs annuity, and if the anticipated lifespan is going to be 4 years, then the simple break-even point might be £240,000. So it's 4 years, 4 times 60, £240,000. If you live for 4 years in its simplest guise, you're going to be better off. If you die under 4 years, you're going to be worse off. But you've got this danger of it's quite a lot of money to pay up front. And what happens if parent passes away after 12 months? We've paid £240,000 and we've had £60,000 benefit. So an alternative thing to consider is a deferred care fees annuity. And it's a bit like sitting on the fence. So the reason people will buy a care fees annuity is because they want the certainty of what the future cost of care is going to be, and they might want to remain in control of paying for of person paying for their own care, because once you lose control and you become dependent on the local authority, then there's a good chance you're not going to get the care. There's often a mismatch between what the level of care that the local authority say the person needs and the level of care that the family think the person needs, because the local authorities haven't got any money. So if you go down the deferred care fees annuity and we use the same scenario, then it might cost, instead of costing £240,000 for one that pays out immediately, it might cost £120,000 or £121,000 or £122,000. But then it doesn't pay anything for the first 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
I mean, you can do different deferred periods, up to 5 years, I think. But if we use that because my maths need to be simple for me to describe it. So we defer it for 2 years. So we pay £120,000 up front, but we get no benefit for the first 2 years. So we're still paying the additional £60,000 out of capital over and above savings and pensions, over and above income that we've got. So after 4 years, it probably costs a very similar amount. But if the person passes away after 1 year, then you've paid £120,000 for the annuity and you've paid £60,000. So you've paid £180,000 instead of £240,000. And I don't think they get talked about enough. Now, call me a cynic, but I think there's a significant conflict of interest with people in the care fees advising arena, because I'm sure there are others out there, but I don't actually know anyone else that charges fixed fees for their care fees annuity work. Now, if I charge 3% of the purchase price of the annuity and the purchase price is £240,000, I'm going to get paid, £7,200? I might be wrong, but that's off quick maths. £7,200
for the immediate
care fees annuity. If I charge 3% and it's £120,000 for the deferred care fees annuity, well, what do I get? £4,200 or something, don't I? So that's a massive conflict of interest. And I just try and remove that conflict of interest. And when I've spoken to some of the providers who offer deferred care fees annuities, and I ask them what percentage of the people buying annuities are buying deferred care fees annuities, it's a really small number, single or small double-digit numbers as a percentage. But for me, it just makes so much sense. So for me, my stats are about 50% of the annuities that people buy via me are deferred. Because, I'll look at immediate and I'll look at deferred, and then I'll have a conversation with the people making the decision, and we'll talk about the pros and cons. And then they ultimately, depending on how they feel, they make the decision as to which one they buy. But because I charge fixed fees, I don't care whether they buy a deferred care fees annuity or an immediate care fees annuity in that respect.
I mean, the same, it's interesting to get an insight to how you navigate this in your conversation with clients. And, the point about, conflict of interest, I guess, partially translates also into the AUM fees, in the sense that someone might say, if you have AUM fees for the advice, then you have less incentive to explore this, the way I think about it, insurance route. But people always come back to, the fact that, we're financial planners, we have the interest of the client at heart, and we have fiduciary duty to the client, to do what's right for them.
Yes.
But it is so explicit in the flat fee framework, this fiduciary obligation, so it's not even a discussion, right? Because by its very nature, you don't have that conflict to worry about.
Yeah, and as I say, I'm sure there's the majority of advisors out there will only act in the best interest of their clients. Mm. But there will be some, rotten eggs out there that will be conflicted and will do what's right for them as opposed to what's right for their client. And, it just helps me. And perhaps I do it partly for me because I need to feel authentic. And part of the way I can feel the most authentic that I can is by charging fixed fees. And so, it's a bit like, I remember when I did the additional exams to get chartered. Mm. I don't think clients care whether you're chartered or diplomaed as long as you're doing a good job. But for me, I needed it because I needed broader shoulders for my own personal imposter syndrome, if you like. It just helped me feel more confident and professional being chartered. And so it was really a thing I did for me rather than anyone else. And that's why I do fixed fees. It's probably as much for me as it is anyone else, but for me, it's the right thing.
Fascinating conversation. Nick Hutchings, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being, so honest and transparent with your view. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. Thank you.
Well, Abraham, I thank you for inviting me on, and it's been a pleasure.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.